House confirms whopping tariffs are hitting Canada tomorrow. What would that impact look like? And how will Canada fight back? We have extensive coverage tonight.
And a serious fire at a home in Toronto's St. Clair West Village leaves 2 people in hospital.
And residents in Liberty Village in Fort York sound the alarm over aggressive coyote attacks as they call on the city to take immediate action. We'll tell you more.
And shoppers may notice there's not a lot of relief at the grocery store. We're going to tell you why.
You're watching Live at 5.
Good evening. I'm Bakari Sapp.
And I'm Lena Latafat. Thank you for joining us here on Live at 5. We begin tonight with what could be a devastating blow to our country's economy. It was early this afternoon the White House confirmed what many feared. Donald Trump's whopping tariffs are coming, and they're coming tomorrow.
Right now, let's bring in CP24 Sija Liu for the latest on what we're hearing on both sides of the border. Joining us live from the newsroom. Hey, Sija.
Lena Bakari, it's been an involving day when it comes to these tariffs. Like you mentioned earlier today, the White House confirmed that the U.S. will be imposing these tariffs on Canada beginning tomorrow. And Donald Trump just spoke moments ago, providing more details. He said that he will impose a 25% tariff on Canadian imports, but also a 10% tariff on oil. And when asked by reporters if there is anything Canada can do tonight to prevent the implementation of these tariffs, Trump said, quote, nothing. There are big economic deficits, and pointed to the flow of fentanyl across the border and said he no longer wants to subsidize Canada, and there are no concessions he is looking for at this time. Take a listen to what he had to say just a few moments ago.
Mr. President, is there anything China, Canada, and Mexico can do tonight to forestall your implementation of tariffs tomorrow?
No, nothing. Not right now, no. Eventually, we're going to put tariffs on chips. We're going to put tariffs on oil and gas. That'll happen fairly soon. I think around the 18th of February.
Mr. President, will tomorrow's tariffs include oil?
What?
Will tomorrow's tariffs be inclusive of Canadian crude?
I'm probably going to reduce the tariff a little bit on that. We think we're going to bring it down to 10% on the oil. So it's 25% on the Canada side.
Now, earlier today, there was a Reuters report that said Trump would be holding off on these tariffs until March 1st. But as you can hear from the president himself, that is no longer the case. He will be pulling the trigger on those tariffs tomorrow. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is responding, saying Canada will retaliate with an immediate and forceful response. Take a listen to what he had to say while in Toronto today.
As President Trump stated yesterday, he is still committed to placing tariffs on Canada starting as early as tomorrow, possibly. Now, we don't know precisely what that could look like, but I do know 2 things. First, if the president does choose to implement any tariffs against Canada, we're ready with a response, a purposeful, forceful, but reasonable, immediate response. It's not what we want, but if he moves forward, we will also act.
And right now, 3 federal cabinet ministers are in Washington, D.C., meeting with U.S. lawmakers in a last-ditch attempt to stop these tariffs. Lena, Bakari.
Okay, CP24, Sija Liu with the very latest, joining us live from the newsroom, and for the impact that these tariffs are going to have on Canadian businesses.
Yeah, for that, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan. She's on Bay Street tonight, and you've been talking about experts who are evaluating the impact. Melissa.
Hey there, Lena. Yeah, actually, I am right now outside of the Toronto Region Board of Trade offices here on Queen's Quay, talking with the president and CEO of this organization at a time just after 5 p.m. tonight, when you can imagine there are local businesses closing up shop for the night, wondering what their new reality is going to be when they start the new work week after whatever happens this weekend when it comes to tariffs. I mean, we heard Trump talking there, sounding like he's just sort of riffing, that he is throwing numbers out there. Exactly what that's going to mean when something finally hits paper and arrives here in Canada, major question marks surrounding that. We were getting feedback, as I mentioned, from the president and CEO of the Toronto Region Board of Trade. He had some scathing remarks to say about this threat of tariffs. It looks like it's coming our way tomorrow now, if you're taking Trump's word for it. He's saying lumping Canada and Mexico together when it comes to illegally crossing the border, when it comes to drugs, that simply isn't fair. He was also giving some feedback to us about what it could mean, especially for some key industries in our country. Think the auto sector, for example. By slapping a 25% tariff on assembled vehicles entering the U.S., that could have a major impact here. Have a listen.
You're not going to sell a single car from Brampton Assembly. A single vehicle, or from Windsor, or from Oakville, where Ford is producing F-150 trucks. So, or Oshawa, where Silverados are coming from. So it's going to be devastating. Now the question is, how are they going to hit Canadian vehicles with a 25% tariff when many of the parts are actually made in the USA?
And something else the Toronto Region Board of Trade is pointing out as well is this kind of shared relationship, this friendly relationship that our two countries have had that have made the auto industries work here in our country and in the U.S., saying parts cross the Canada-U.S. border up to 8 times before final assembly. So what is going to happen with that relationship? Again, a lot that still has to be figured out, still has to be hammered out as we finally wait for those details, Lena and Bakari.
What an anxious time. Melissa Duggan reporting live from downtown Toronto. Thanks so much, Melissa. We'll check in soon. Switching gears, let's get a check on that Friday evening drive. Our traffic specialist, Adjoa, is probably going to tell us it's a slow go.
Ooh, you're using your psychic energy again, Lena. Yeah, it is. It's very slow. But you know what you left out? We're dealing with a little bit of snowfall coming down, especially in the west end of the city. That means if you're heading in towards Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington, and Hamilton, and a lot of issues in the mix. So we'll start with these problems impacting the drive through Oakville. Niagara bound on the QEW, past Ford Drive, crews on scene of a collision that does have the right lane and shoulder block. That is what is creating the delay, along with that snow coming down. And then as you make your way on the QEW and you're traveling on the eastbound side, this is the exit ramp that does take you to Bronte. They blocked the left lane. This is all because of a vehicle which went into the ditch and a collision was involved. So still have a single lane getting by, which is the right. If you are getting off any of these on and off ramps, they are slick and slow. Also, in the distance here, what you're seeing, all these flashing lights in the background, this is the 407 westbound exit ramp that takes you to Fairview. They've had to close that ramp because of 2 vehicles which have ended up in the ditch. And outside of camera view, we are dealing with some significant problems that are happening on the eastbound 403 at the link. Had a vehicle which also went into the ditch. I'll send it back to you both.
All right, thanks a lot, Adj. An 18-year-old man and a 17-year-old boy, they've been charged in connection with rocks being thrown at moving vehicles in Markham and Whitchurch-Stouffville.
Yeah, the incidents began in July of last year. York police say there are 29 incidents under investigation, including rocks being thrown at homes. This is so strange. Both of the accused are charged with mischief under $5,000. The 18-year-old has not been identified because he was a youth at the time. York police say more charges may be laid.
And OPP is investigating 11 similar incidents on Highway 48 in Markham. In one case, a driver was hit by a rock, causing them to lose consciousness and crash. Well, 2 people suffered critical injuries as a result. At this time, OPP hasn't announced any charges in these cases.
In other news, one person is fighting for their life after a fire broke out at a home in Toronto's St. Clair West Village.
Yeah, crews were called to an address in the area of Oakwood Avenue in St. Clair shortly before 10 last night. So Toronto Fire says one person had to be rescued from the home while others made it out on their own. And paramedics say that they did rush one patient to hospital with life-threatening injuries, while a second person was transported in serious condition. And neighbors tell CP24 that the property is a halfway house for people with mental health and addiction issues.
I was alerted to something happening by my dog, who became very agitated and was just barking like crazy for a long time. And eventually my husband came up and he said, oh, there's a fire at the halfway house. We call it the halfway house at the corner here, which is 2 doors down. And so I looked out the window on the third floor and I saw smoke billowing out from the corner there and lots of lights, fire trucks, I think maybe even ambulance.
And the cause of the fire is still under investigation.
Well, the group of Fort York and Liberty Village residents, they're trying to raise awareness about coyote attacks in the area.
For all the details on this, let's go live to CP24 with Steve Ryan. Steve, this has been an ongoing issue, and residents say they've had enough. They're looking for the city to intervene.
Yeah, they are looking for the city to intervene, Alina, and they are also very concerned about themselves, their own dogs, and just their neighbors in general. So we're talking about this green space here, which is north of Fort York and south of Ordnance Street. People that live in Liberty Village or on the opposite side of Strawn on Ordnance Street have claimed that they have been attacked by packs of coyotes over the last few months. There's been 13 dog attacks by coyotes since in the last 9 days. So people are very concerned. And what they say to me is that the coyotes aren't afraid of people. They're very aggressive. They are predators. They stalk, they hide, and they pounce on a dog on a leash, or they chase people. I spoke with two people in specifically who had no dogs with them, and they had wound up running into one of the condo buildings as a result of the coyotes chasing them. So this is a big concern for them, and they called this press conference today to get the word out so that others in this area would know what's going on in these parks, and they are asking the city to do more than just step up animal control patrols, which the city said it's going to do. Here is more from one of the people who we spoke with earlier today. Let's have a listen.
My dog, Amber, and I were attacked by two coyotes. We were ambushed. They came out of nowhere. And as I was trying to fend off the coyote in the front, the coyote in the back did attack her, and she had deep puncture wounds and was trying to carry her away. I was able to, instinct kicked in, and I was able to scoop her up. And while she was in my arms and bleeding, the coyotes were still coming at us. And thankfully, there were people walking by who helped me get to safety. The coyotes were not afraid, regardless of how much we were yelling.
That was Ruby. She was spearheading this entire movement here to get attention drawn to this location, and she lost her dog. Her dog died a month after it was attacked, and she spent $20,000 on vet bills. So back to you guys.
All right, CP24's crime analyst Steve Ryan. Thanks, Steve. It's now 5:12, holding at 0. This is Live at 5.
Well, it is day 3 of the provincial election campaign. We're going to have the latest from the trail coming up next. Stay with us. It is day 3 of the election campaign, and party leaders are already out in full force making campaign pledges to voters with just 28 days until Ontarians elect the next premier.
Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie was in Toronto making a transit pledge at Kennedy Station. Crombie says a Liberal government would prioritize transit safety, which included promises to install barriers on all TTC subway platforms and a major hiring increase.
At this very station, there have been assaults. Recently, there have been stabbings. And that's just not acceptable. And it's time for someone to stand up and to do something about it. So you will hear from us today. We have a little program on some simple things that we can do to make people feel safer riding the TTC. So certainly in a first, we would invest in 300 new constables. Secondly, we would train up more response teams, mobile crisis response teams that are equipped to responding to people with mental health crises.
PC leader Doug Ford hit the campaign trail in St. Catharines. Ford stopped by the SteelCon factory. He promised workers there that he would protect their jobs in the face of looming U.S. tariffs. He continues to position himself as the best person to lead Ontario through the fallout.
Nobody's ever solved a problem by wishing it away. We have to play the hand we're dealt. If tariffs do in fact come tomorrow, the federal government needs to be ready to immediately implement a strong and forceful response. Dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff. The federal government has my full support to hit back and hit back hard. Retaliatory tariffs by the federal government are the tip of the spear.
Mart Stiles spent the day in southwestern Ontario meeting with constituents in Windsor at an event for a local candidate and also stopped by a local Unifor location to meet with workers and union leaders. Stiles held a news conference where she pitched herself as the right candidate to lead Ontario through the impact of U.S. tariffs.
To make sure that we weather this storm that's coming, we're going to take care of people through actions that are going to secure you and your family, like income protection. We're going to do whatever we need to help you and to keep people working and able to pay the bills. But I want to be really clear. We're not backing down. We're certainly not backing down now. We're not backing down ever. We are going to fight back.
And for more on the Ontario election campaign, head to our website, CP24.com, and the CP24 app.
It's 5:17, holding at 0, feeling more like 6 below outside. This is Live at 5.
Coming up, the latest on the search for victims of a deadly mid-air collision and the investigation into the cause. We're giving you a live shot of the Potomac River. Stay with us.
Well, police boats, they continue to search the Potomac River. This after recovery after Wednesday night's collision between an American Airlines jet and an Army helicopter.
Officials say that the bodies of 41 of the 67 people who died have been recovered. Fire Chief Don Donnelly spoke about the search for the victims.
We think we know where they are. We won't know until we're done. I mean, we're going to continue the search operation, but we've searched a large portion of this river, and we are right there. I believe that when we remove the aircraft, that will help us resolve this number. If it doesn't, we will continue the search.
And the investigation into the deadly collision, it continues, but federal investigators have said that they will not speculate on what led to the mid-air disaster.
So early in the investigation. Well, back here at home, cases of tuberculosis in the city rose to their highest level in more than 2 decades last year.
Toronto Public Health says that it recorded 375 TB infections in 2024. That's the largest number of cases since 2002. And Toronto's Associate Medical Officer of Health says that the figure highlights the public health challenges associated with the disease, which spreads through the air. Symptoms include coughing, chest pains, and fever. Well, severe cases can be fatal, but TB can be treated with antibiotics. An infectious diseases specialist, Dr. Isaac Bogosh, says that there are 2 types of tuberculosis.
One is called latent tuberculosis, which is basically a sleep tuberculosis, meaning someone breathes it in, it gets into their body, and your immune system just walls it off. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there. You don't know you have it. You're not contagious to others. You have no symptoms whatsoever. But the problem is in about 5 to 10% of people with latent tuberculosis, the tuberculosis wakes up. It becomes active. It's called active tuberculosis. And that has symptoms: fever, cough, blood in the sputum, weight loss. You're transmissible to other people. And it's a major problem.
Dr. Bogosh says between 25 and 30% of the global population has latent TB.
Well, the cost of your next grocery bill, it could be set to climb even higher.
We're joined live by CP24's Lindsay Biscaya, who joins us live from our newsroom with all the details. Not what people want to hear, especially before whopping tariffs, Lindsay.
Well, that's exactly it, Lena and Bakari. I mean, we're already in a little bit of an affordability crisis here in Canada and really around the world, and this is not going to help. But this is just because there's actually an industry freeze, basically, from November until the end of January. This happens every year on grocery prices. So we're talking most groceries with the exemption of like meats and fresh vegetables. But it basically happens every year just to kind of stabilize prices for consumers and for workers at a time when it's so busy already. So what usually happens throughout the year, not in this time period, is suppliers will try to increase their prices of certain products. They've got reasons for that. And grocery stores will look at those reasons and decide whether that is actually justifiable and whether those prices should rise. But around this time of year, those pitches from suppliers are actually just kind of blacked out so that workers at grocery stores and whatnot can focus more on inventory and the busy holiday season. That's what usually happens. And so now a lot of industry experts are saying it's basically just back to business as usual. Take a listen.
That window has closed where we say suppliers can't propose an increase. And now they will return to sort of what we say the normal business practice of interacting. And a lot of retailers will have windows for costs to change. So they may look at a certain category for a particular period of time, that kind of thing. So I guess we're back to sort of the way that the business operates after that key holiday selling period.
And so we will start to see those increases come in the end of January, which is right now, Lena and Bakari. So if you're shopping at the grocery store, you'll probably notice those increases within the first couple weeks of February. Back to you.
Okay, good to know, Lindsay. Thanks so much. You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
Coming up, The Weeknd is bringing his After Hours Till Dawn tour to Toronto.
The Weeknd's North American Stadium tour will see the Scarborough performer make 2 stops in Toronto.
And The Weeknd revealed the tour shortly after dropping his latest album, the After Hours Till Dawn tour. Is going to take over Rogers Centre July 27th and the 28th. He's also set to play shows in Vancouver, Edmonton, and Montreal. Pre-sale tickets, those will be available starting next week, February 5th, with general sale kicking off February 7th.
Well, the weekend is here, the other kind of weekend, and that means there are lots of new movies hitting theaters.
There have been 2 moments in my life when I was happiest. First was the day I met Josh.
I'm Josh.
I'm Iris. And the second, the day I killed him.
Ooh, okay. All right. So this is Companion. It's a darkly comedic sci-fi thriller starring Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. A weekend getaway at a billionaire's palatial home takes a dark turn when the host is killed. Richard Krause says that it's a fast-paced, entertaining thriller that tackles some big issues. If you like Black Mirror and The Twilight Zone, this is probably for you. I'm going to have to watch this.
I will tell you that Jack Quaid brings real boyish charm to this, but there's something bubbling underneath, and that Sophie Thatcher is terrific in this. She has a very difficult role. She's got to do lots of things. She speaks different languages. She has to use lots of different accents. She has to change her emotions on a dime, all that kind of stuff. She pulls it off really, really well, and it's funny, and it's got some real thrills in it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's called Companion, and it's in theaters right now.
What if we sew the dog's head onto the man's body?
And the wildly popular kids' book series Dog Man is now on the big screen, featuring the voices of Pete Davidson and Isla Fisher. It follows the story of an officer and his dog, Greg, who get blown up by the world's most evil cat. To save them, Greg's head is grafted onto the officer's body, creating a type of super cop. Krause describes it as a pedal to the metal type of experience filled with childish humor and some really sweet messages.
Right now it's 5:28, holding at 0. This is Live at 5.
U.S. President Donald Trump says there is nothing that Canada can do to prevent tariffs from being implemented. A 25% tariff on Canadian imports that is set to go into effect tomorrow. We're back with lots of reactions. Stay with us.
The White House confirms whopping tariffs are hitting Canada tomorrow. What would the impact look like? How will Canada fight back? We have extensive coverage tonight.
A serious fire at a home in Toronto's St. Clair West Village leaves 2 people in hospital. We'll tell you more.
Residents in Liberty Village and Fort York sound the alarm over aggressive coyote attacks as they call on the city to take immediate action.
And shoppers may notice there's not a lot of relief at the grocery store. We'll tell you why.
This is Live at 5.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Lena Latifat.
I'm Bakari Savage. We begin with what could be a devastating blow to our country's economy. So it was early this afternoon. The White House confirmed that what many have feared. Donald Trump's whopping tariffs, they are coming and they're coming tomorrow.
And speaking with reporters not that long ago, Donald Trump said there is nothing Canada can do to prevent these tariffs. Let's bring in CP24's Sija Liu for the latest on these developments. Sija.
Lena Bakari, there is no more speculation. Speaking just an hour ago, President Donald Trump said he is pulling the trigger on these tariffs. He provided more details on the numbers and when they will be imposed. He said he is hitting Canada with a 25% tariff on imports and a 10% tariff on oil beginning tomorrow. Mexico will also be hit with a 25% tariff and China a 10% duty. He says he is also going to hit the European Union with something as well. And when asked by reporters if there is anything Canada can do tonight to prevent the tariffs from going forward, he said no, nothing, adding that he no longer wants to subsidize Canada. Take a listen to his latest remarks from the Oval Office on why he is making this move.
But we've suffered under the past administration for years and years. We've suffered with millions of criminals coming into our country. Criminals, people from jails from all over the world. They come through Mexico and they come through Canada too. A lot of them come through Canada, and a lot of fentanyl comes through Canada. And China makes the fentanyl. You know, China makes the fentanyl, gives it to Mexico, puts it through Canada, puts it through different places, mostly Mexico, but also a lot through Canada.
Now, it's been an ever-evolving news day. Earlier today, we heard from Reuters. They reported that Donald Trump would be holding off on the tariffs until March 1st. But as you just heard from the president himself, that is no longer the case, and these tariffs will be beginning on Saturday. And with now just hours to go, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada will be retaliating with an immediate and forceful response. Take a listen to what he had to say in Toronto today.
Right now, we're showing the new American administration that they have a strong partner in Canada when it comes to upholding border security, all while simultaneously underscoring that we won't back down, that if tariffs are implemented against Canada, we will respond. We won't relent until tariffs are removed, and of course, everything is on the table.
All these developments are happening as 3 federal cabinet ministers are in Washington, D.C. right now, meeting with lawmakers to pump up their border security plan. But Lena and Bakari, it certainly is not looking good.
Yeah, that's for sure. Very ominous situation there. Thanks so much for this, Sija. Now, what will the impact of these devastating tariffs be on Canadian businesses? That's what so many are trying to figure out tonight.
Okay, for that, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan. Melissa, you're in the heart of the financial district. What are you hearing?
So what we're talking about tonight, is what are the real life impacts that we could be feeling here? And the fear is that jobs could be lost and costs could go up. Because we're not just looking at those tariffs that the U.S. is set to implement, but also the retaliatory tariffs that Canada could unleash on U.S. products coming into Canada. How is that going to trickle down to the average household? We have heard from Doug Ford saying he fears that 500,000 jobs here in Ontario alone could be lost. There has been some pushback to that number, but certainly some real concern about how this is going to affect just everyday people. We were talking with the chief economist at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce about the industries that could be hardest hit. Have a listen.
The modeling we've done suggests that the biggest impact would be on the energy sector. So Canada sends a lot of oil across the border. And so oil and natural gas would be, in terms of value of trade exposed, is the biggest measure. And second on the list would be the auto sector. So there's obviously a lot of cross-border coordination that happens as car parts are moving back and forth. So the biggest sectors that we see hit would be energy. There are discussions, as you mentioned, to exempt energy. And so for the areas that if exemptions are given in certain areas, the impacts would be lessened in those areas. But definitely the higher level impacts of the results that we have would be quite a significant shock for Canada's economy, but also quite a significant shock and increase for American consumers and hurt their businesses as well.
So as we're looking to the border and the drama that is unfolding there and beyond, we were talking to the mayor of Niagara Falls, of course, a very close neighbor to the U.S., and he really shared his concern, especially for the manufacturing industry, what it could mean for them. And he fears that costs will go up. Have a listen to kind of his look back at history when it comes to this situation.
The last time this happened was in the 1930s during President Hoover's time, and Henry Ford at the time called it economic stupidity, and it exacerbated the Great Depression that took place at that time. And it wasn't until the 50s when FDR removed them and the U.S. and Canada enjoyed unprecedented prosperity. So you don't have to look too far in history to realize this is a huge mistake that's going to affect both sides of the border.
And of course, one thing we don't know the answer to right now, Bakari and Lena, is just how long these tariffs could possibly stick around. So that is definitely something that could play a major factor into this all. Is it going to be quick? And then things will kind of find a way to resolve? Or are we going to see this implemented for a long time to come in the months, years ahead? We do not have the answer to that right now. Back to you.
So much economic uncertainty. Melissa Duggan reporting live. Thanks so much for this, Melissa. Well, a lot of uncertainty on the roads tonight as well. CP24's traffic specialist Adjoa Nsia has the latest on that. Hey, Ed.
Yeah, I do. You know, we were dealing with a lot of snow coming down into the west end of the city, in particular through Oakville, Burlington, and Hamilton. It subsided, but damage done. A lot of problems happening. We'll start with issues happening on the Niagara-bound lanes of the QEW. This is just as you make your way past Ford Drive. Right lane and shoulder blocked to this collision. Again, roads are still very slick, slippery, and track bare. Then as you make your way further west on the QEW, this is actually the northbound QEW, northbound Dorval on-ramp to the Niagara-bound QEW. Vehicle into the ditch. A lot of these off and on ramps, very slick, very slippery as the temperature is quickly starting to drop. We also have problems that are happening on the Niagara-bound QEW exit ramp to Bronte. Left lane blocked with the collision. Right lane is squeezing by. If your travels take you to the 407, this is the ramp, the off-ramp to Fairview. Now, it's been closed because of serious multi-vehicle collision, and one vehicle ended up in the ditch. That's a theme. And if your travels take you on the 401 into Durham, eastbound on the 401, at the start of the ramp that takes you to the 412, it is a collision. It is in the two right lanes. So a very, very busy evening. I'll send it back to you both.
All right, thanks, Adj. Well, a group of Fort York and Liberty Village residents is trying to raise awareness about coyote attacks in the area.
Let's go live to CP24's Steve Ryan, who's been listening to some of those concerns. And Steve, they're describing these coyotes as aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive, very brazen, and not afraid of people. So we're talking about this green space here, which is between Fort York to the south and Ordnance Street to the north. It's a very popular spot for people to walk and to take their dogs. Now, we heard many horrific stories today from residents who talked about incidents where the coyotes in packs would come out from hiding and attack their dogs. Or if there was no dog, they would attack people as well. I talked with two women today who ran into a building to get away from coyotes who were pursuing her. So the residents held a press conference today, a community press conference, to warn others with regards to these coyote attacks. There has been 13 in the last 9 days. One dog was killed as a result. That woman, she's the one that organized this community event today, and they are concerned. They've asked the city to step in. We heard from the city today. The Deputy Mayor, Malak, sent out a statement saying that the city is going to step up the animal control patrols in this area. But these residents say that that's not enough. They are concerned and they want more to be done. Here's a reaction from one of the residents who I spoke with earlier today. Let's listen.
I've actually been chased or attacked 3 times by coyotes since last September. The first time I actually had my son, it was during the day in Garrison Creek Park, and he chased me with my 2 dogs in a stroller. So obviously it was really difficult. I was very scared for my son. The dogs I managed, they're very little, so at least I was able to pick it up. And I managed to run away quick enough. But he chased me through the entire park, and then I eventually was able to escape. The second time, my dog Willow was actually attacked just by that trash can right there.
Chris Glover, the local MPP for this area, he was here at this press conference today as well. He told me that he has been in contact with the MNR, and they told him that they have a policy in place whereby they can only relocate coyotes a kilometer from where they take them. He said, so that's not going to help. And he also said that during the winter time, these coyotes are hungry and they can't tell the difference between rabbits, squirrels, or doggos. He said all they see his dinner. So people are concerned, and they're hoping that more can be done as we go ahead in the next week or so. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Steve, thanks so much for this. One person is fighting for their life after a fire broke out at a home in Toronto's St. Clair West Village.
Crews were called to an address in the area of Oakwood Avenue in St. Clair shortly before 10 o'clock last night. Toronto Fire says one person had to be rescued from the home while others made it out on their own. And paramedics say that they did rush one patient to hospital with life-threatening injuries, while a second person was transported in serious condition. Neighbors tell CP24 the property is a halfway house for people with mental health and addiction issues.
It's not a halfway house for prisoners or former inmates, but it's people who have mental health issues or addiction issues. And we've lived here for, over 20 years. And so we've seen people that have been okay, well taken care of, but there have been others that we've been concerned about.
And the cause of the fire is still under investigation.
It's 5:42, holding at 0. This is Live at 5.
It is day 3 of the provincial election campaign. Coming up, we're going to have the latest from the main party leaders. We'll be right back with more.
It's day 3 of the election campaign. Party leaders, they're already out in full force making campaign pledges to voters with just 28 days until Ontarians elect the next premier.
And PC leader Doug Ford hit the campaign trail in St. Catharines today.
And Ford stopped by the Steelcon factory. He promised workers there that he would protect their jobs in the face of looming U.S. tariffs. Ford spoke in Niagara Falls in the afternoon, and CTV News Toronto has confirmed that 3 Niagara mayors are endorsing Doug Ford for re-election today. The mayors of Welland, St. Catharines, and Niagara Falls are all throwing their support behind the PC leader. Niagara Falls Mayor Jim Diodati tells CP24 that he thinks Doug Ford is the best person to help Ontario navigate a potential trade war with the U.S.
We will invest an additional $22 billion into our government's nearly $200 billion plan to build. We're not only going to invest more, we're going to invest faster. We'll prioritize shovel-ready projects that can get people to work quickly. Here in Niagara, that includes widening the QEW between Burlington and St. Catharines.
And Mara Stiles spent the day in southwestern Ontario. She met with constituents in Windsor at an event for a local candidate and also stopped by a local Unifor location to meet with workers and union leaders. Stiles held a news conference where she pitched herself as the right candidate to lead Ontario through the impact of U.S. tariffs.
I was a little girl growing up on a farm, a family farm in Newfoundland, and I learned one thing very clearly. You never, ever back down to bullies. We are going to fight like hell for every single job and every single worker in this province. Just like we did when we had to fight Ford on the Greenbelt, we fought back and we won. And we're going to do it again. I'm going to support strong, smart tariff responses, tough tariff responses that hit back hard.
Liberal leader Bonnie Crosby was in Toronto making a transit pledge at Kennedy Station.
Crosby says a Liberal government would prioritize transit safety, which included promises to install barriers on all subway platforms and a major hiring increase that would see 300 new constables added to the TTC. She also criticized Doug Ford's record on transit.
Ford government has a number of outstanding transit projects in the work that they like to point to, but they just can't get it done. You know, they're over budget, and there's even no news on the Eglinton Crosstown on when it will be completed. There's been a complete, again, abdication of responsibility. You saw the termination of the CEO or the abrupt departure of the CEO because no one's being held accountable. And that's true across the province with all the public transit initiatives, GO train lines that have been announced and nothing done.
And for more on the Ontario election campaign, just head to our website, CP24.com, or the CP24 app.
And you're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's breaking news, CP24. Coming up, we'll tell you why your bill might be higher the next time you go grocery shopping. Stay with us.
Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc has confirmed that the government is deferring the increase in the capital gains tax.
The inclusion rate increased from 1/2 to 2/3 on capital gains. That's been delayed until January 1st, 2026 now. The government says it'll maintain exemptions for principal residences and keep the threshold at $250,000. So those earning modest gains will get the lower 50% inclusion rate. The increase was announced in the last federal budget as a measure of tax fairness, but it was met with a lot of opposition from the Conservatives and business groups.
And Liberal leadership candidate Mark Carney is promising to scrap the consumer carbon tax if elected. Carney says that the pricing system is too divisive, so instead he'll replace it with incentives for consumers to make green choices. His plan will see the biggest polluters pay for those incentives. He's also pledging to invest in energy-efficient buildings and electrify transportation. And Carney says he'll introduce trade measures to ensure fairness for Canadian industries and the global economy.
Canadians have had more than enough of such division and confusion. With Canada now under attack, it is time to come together. And since Canada's current climate policy has become too divisive, it's time for a new, more effective climate plan that everyone can get behind. It's a plan that makes our economy more competitive, it grows good jobs today, and it will grow better ones in the future. You know, friends, there are literally billions of dollars of investment on the table and millions of jobs at stake.
Well, fellow Liberal leadership contender Chrystia Freeland has already said she would also scrap the consumer carbon tax. Karina Gould, who's also in this race, says she'll pause the upcoming April 1st increase. Meanwhile, former Liberal MP and billionaire businessman Frank Baylis has said he would fix the carbon price, but he hasn't really talked about how.
Statistics Canada is out with its latest economic report as the threat of U.S. tariffs looms.
The agency says real gross domestic product fell 0.2% in November. It is the biggest monthly decrease since December of 2023. Most of the decline was driven by the mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction sectors. However, StatCan's preliminary estimate for December shows an increase of 0.2% for that month, suggesting an annualized growth rate of 1.8% in the fourth quarter of 2024.
Well, the cost of your next grocery bill, it could be set to go up even higher.
The annual industry-wide freeze on price increases from suppliers is coming to an end. Most Canadian grocers maintain a blackout on price hikes every holiday period when customers are most cost conscious. It's a long-standing practice meant to help stabilize prices, but some retailers have advertised holiday price freezes over the past few years amid the anger over food inflation.
It's 5:54, holding at 0. This is Live at 5.
Winterlicious is underway. Coming up after the break, we're going to check in with CTV Toronto's Jessica Smith for the delicious details. We'll be right back. Well, foodies, this one's for you. Winterlicious kicks off today. It's back for another year.
All right, let's go live to CTV's Jessica Smith for a preview. And Jessica, before we get any further, I'm just going to say this. You got to bring a plate back, okay?
I don't think there's going to be any food left. I'll be honest, I've had some samples, and there will be nothing left. But for the foodies out there, because today's day one of Winterlicious, it's beginning, and we're going to have so many options for restaurants throughout the city, and the weather's a little iffy over the next couple of days, so it's good to stay inside. I'm joined by Adrian Cook, the chef here, and listen, we've been talking about food all day, but we're here at Chubby's Jamaican Kitchen. You guys are a big deal here in the city, a staple. What does it mean to be a part of Winterlicious once again, and what are you bringing special this year?
Yes, so I am very happy to be a part of the Winterlicious program this year. It has been 7 years since we have been in business and taking, just to say, a part of the pie in the Winterlicious program. This is now an honor for us to do so this year. So we currently have a lot of menu items, flavor, Jamaican flavors, taste, and today we just want to make sure that everyone have the opportunity to try the Jamaican food at Chubby's Jamaican Kitchen.
I'm openly biased because I love Caribbean food. I have Jamaican heritage, but I want to talk about the dish that we have for the sample today. I will try to bring something back to the station, no promises, but oxtail is a staple in Caribbean culture. And talk to me about the soup, because you put a little twist on it just for Winterlicious.
Yes, so definitely we actually now on the Winterlicious menu today, we're doing oxtail and red pea soup, and it's pretty much braised oxtail and red peas, which is let's just say, cooked down, flavor with all the Jamaican flavor, coming into one dish. Because it's winter currently, we decided to actually do this dish for Winterlicious so that everyone can try it and enjoy it.
Listen, it warms you up from the inside out. Now, you guys are a really special restaurant, Michelin recognized. What does it mean to be able to bring in new people with Winterlicious into your restaurant, maybe for the very first time?
It is an honor to know that persons can come in and try our food. Past years, being Michelin recommended for the last 3 years, we continue to strive for the best and try to put out, guess what, the most flavorful and authentic Jamaican food to Toronto.
So when people come on down, do you recommend they make their reservation? I know you guys are busy on a regular day.
Yes, we do tell them to make their reservations.
Jess, we got to cut you off right
the
there.
opportunity is
Just
always
bring us
here,
a plate
whether
back.
you do
Thanks
have
for
a reservation
watching
or
CTV
not.
News. That's next.
Thanks, everybody.